Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Marketing Water Cooler. I'm your host, Jeremy Francesi. Thanks for stopping by. Steph, what are we going over today?
Let's talk about uh, some things to ask before shopping for marketing vendors.
Like the question. So look, when you're going from nothing to something, it's easy to start and immediately think we need to shop vendors and go get quotes and bids and kind of walk up to the buffet and just pick and choose and have a ball. But what can happen is the vendors and the agencies that are talking to you, they're going to come and talk to you about really what they know and what they do. And if they're an SEO shop, they're probably going to recommend SEO. If they're a content creation shop, they're going to talk about content creation. And it's okay to not know everything. And it's okay to even not have a clear plan. But there are a couple things you should do, especially if you're in a B2B environment, you're in a technical industry. There's a few things that you should do before you start calling on vendors to prepare for those meetings and really know what you're looking for. The first is understanding, what do you have in-house that can be a partner in the process, right? Most marketing relationships are a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really just saying, do everything for me. There has to be a collaborative process. So you first understand, who do you have in-house? Is it just you, CMO or head of marketing, and you're now responsible for building it? Then understand what you're good at. Take inventory. Are you great at strategy? Are you great at understanding your customer? And that's the value you can bring. Take pause and think through, what are you really strong at? What are you good at? And what can you bring to the partnership? Because if you can't set great expectations in the onset of the relationship in those vendor reviews, the first few months are going to be rocky, because you're going to have to figure out how to partner with each other and who's expecting what to happen on either side. So one is kind of understand what you currently have in-house at your business. The second piece is kind of think through what you really need help with, right? Look at what your competitors are doing. Understand a bit about, well, they're in the B2B space. They're doing some webinars, some ebooks, some white papers, right? We'll talk in later episodes. Like, the industry's changing. You can't just do a couple white papers and a webinar and all of a sudden you go to the moon, right? It's a little bit harder than that. It has to be more comprehensive and thoughtful to make sure it resonates. But once you have an idea of what you already have in-house, and you know where you can kind of bring value to the agency of directing them and helping them understand your business and your customer, think through what you really do need help with, right? Because I promise you, especially when you're going from nothing to something, if you just raise funding and you now have $200 million in the bank, or $10 million in the bank, or $100,000, if you go to an agency, a lot of times they're just going to tell you that we need this big thing and we got to go all in on it. But the truth is, you may need to start simple and get the foundation right? How can you roll out a multi-platform content strategy when you don't really have a clear brand identity, right? Mm-hmm. So understand what you really need help with, right? Do you need help with direction? Do you need help with the strategy and how to approach this process? Or do you have the strategy and now you need help bringing it to life? I have a vision, but I need somebody to make things for me to create the success and execution of the vision. Or maybe you've been doing things and maybe you don't know if it's been working, and you need a firm to come in and kind of audit the scenario and say, well, let's take a look under the hood and see if there's a better way to do it, right? So you have to have an idea of, what do you really need from the agency, right? Direction, creation, execution, or maybe the diagnostic to see why things aren't working as effectively and what you could do better. And ultimately, once you have those ideas and you have a clear framework, you have to start to understand, what are you really trying to accomplish, right? Mm-hmm. Do you need leads? Like, is your marketing engine supplying your business development reps with inbound leads? Or are you trying to build brand awareness because you're having a really hard time finding talent? And you're trying to use social media to build a vibrant community around your brand to attract engineers or salespeople or other staff. You have to have an idea of what you're trying to accomplish. And if you don't, it's not that you can't through the evaluation and the partnership with the agency, but knowing if you want brand visibility and knowing if you need leads will necessitate a different relationship with the vendor, and quite possibly a completely different evaluation process with the vendor, right? Mm-hmm. Brand awareness may be how, we need views and a great reputation. Leads is a very different conversion relationship. They really have to understand how to resonate with people to get them to give you information so you can call them. Very different. So kind of tying it up, understand what you have in-house already that you can bring to the table in the relationship. Understand what you need help with. strategy, direction? Do you have a game plan? You need help with somebody bringing it to life? Or do you have a track record and it's not working the way you think it is, and you need somebody to come in and kind of audit the situation and get you back on track? And once you have those two things done, what are you trying to accomplish with the agency? Are you starting at brand identity, trying to get customers and leads, trying to get brand awareness? Are you trying to use marketing and branding to acquire talent instead of paying job boards? Build a community around it. If you can do those three things, the agencies will appreciate it. Your marketing, vendor relationship will be better. And you'll also have a better means of accountability because you'll know what you want out of it. And ultimately, you have to have some levels of accountability.
Right. Yeah. How do you know when you're at the point where, you're maybe at like the tipping point where like we've been doing okay by ourselves? How do you know when it's time to bring someone new in or like an outside vendor in?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It really comes down to a couple of things. One is functionality of just how much time do you have? Like, you have a great plan and a strategy, and you're just like, we need to be doing more. Then that's where it begs the question: do you hire somebody for $50,000 to $100,000 in house with benefits and salary and all the pieces, and bring them into the team, or do you hire a third party, agency or vendor or however you want to structure the relationship? To help you get more done more quickly, right? So it could be a matter of, just performance. We need to be getting more done because the strategy is good, but we're not getting enough done because we don't have enough people. We're spread too thin. That's one angle. The other angle is potentially that you're looking for a specialist, right? Maybe you have content, you're creating things, the strategy's good, digital's good, and it's not converting the way it is because you have somebody managing your ads, your paid media strategy. That's not really what they do. It's something they can do, and they're a motivated employee and they want to help, but it may not be what they do. And so the opportunity to step back and think, is there a better way to approach this task with somebody that's what they do? That could be a trigger event to make it, you step back and say, maybe we should talk to a third party, a vendor, to figure out, let's focus on this internally, but let's go call ABC Co. or bring in some options so that we can say, we need somebody for search engine optimization, right? That's what they do. They have the team to do it. And then you can learn and develop and build the relationship with that agency. And then maybe you start bringing an SEO specialist in-house to interface with that specialty shop, right? You start to build those functions. So it's you're not getting enough done because you don't have enough members on the team or the equipment or the resources to do it. Or you need a specialist to really go deep into it. The other angle on that, and you kind of touched on, is like, look, if you've been chipping away doing stuff and it's not working, it gets back to the core, the first three things of, do you know what you're trying to accomplish? Do you have KPIs that you can measure to understand if it's succeeding or failing? Have you given yourself a real at bat to know if it works? If you put out 4 blog posts, you don't know enough to know if it's working or not. So there has to be a level of humility to understand, did you really test the strategy? And then the other side of it is economies of scale. If you are internally making some content, using Photoshop and Illustrator and making some things, maybe your podcast is in-house, which is so feasible at this point with technology. But maybe you're ready to really ramp up content production. Then the question isn't so much, what do we do? It's, do you want to go buy a bunch of equipment or staff, freelance production staff for operators every time you want to make something, which is responsibilities, logistics, and costs, right? Or do you want to go hire an agency that has the creative network, the production facilities, and the experience to know how to extract value from creatives? Then maybe that's an opportunity. Because the truth is, you can do a lot without spending a ton of money for equipment, but sustainably doing it is where it gets hard, because you have to pay somebody every time you want them to show up with a camera. You have to pay somebody every time you want to make something. So that's where you need to think through, what's the step here? Are we going to build out our resources, or do we want to go find somebody that already has them?
That makes sense. Yeah. What are the biggest benefits to hiring someone, an outside firm or an outside vendor?
Yeah. So look, I'm going to answer the opposite of that, and then I'll bring it full circle. I think so. So here's the thing to keep in mind: when you hire somebody in-house as an employee, like as a manager, let's say you're a founder, an executive team, you don't have a CMO, you don't have a VP of marketing, you don't have anything yet, right? And maybe you're a federal contractor or a consultant, you've done a lot of business with the government or specific channels, and you're like, I think we can really build something here, and you want to take that step. The benefit of hiring people in-house is you can build culture and you can expand the team and you can build certain processes internally that are unique. And it really does add culture. We always tell our clients, marketing is a culture, not a department, right? Telling a story and believing the story and being a part of progress is something everybody needs to understand and everybody needs to believe. But that also means that you have to be responsible for the training, the development, the technology, the resources, the development of your own workflows to manage media, to manage the distribution, to manage the content, the copywriting, the illustrations, the audio visual editing and production. There's a lot that goes into that you absolutely can build in-house, but it's a tremendous amount of work. It can be very costly to do incorrectly. And the truth is the average millennial only stays at a job every 14 to 16 months. Baby boomers are a little bit better, but it's not a long shot. So when we have an expectation of more reasonable turnover, even if you can get 2 years from somebody, you have to ask the question, do you want to have to consistently be reteaching people how to tell your story? Because if you hire an agency, they may have people turnover because the data is the data, but they have the infrastructure, and they should at least, to understand the story, the brand, the standards, the message, the channels, the execution, where if they have to replace a copywriter, a writer, an operator, et cetera, that shouldn't force them to skip a beat. That's what they're good at. So that's where I'll kind of go full circle. Having somebody that really understands the space and how to deliver will save you time, even though you have to pay them to deliver the strategy and the work, right? So you should get to the end result you're trying to acquire faster if you find the right partner, right? Because internally, you're gonna have to test and do things. And if you can hire a VP of marketing that's been in the game, amazing, right? Amazing. But even most of them are going to think through, let's build a small team internally and then work with an agency that has the scale and the economies and the resources to go do a lot quickly and effectively, right? So the benefits on that side is you get turnkey infrastructure, you get turnkey resources. You don't have to worry about, and you shouldn't feel the burden of the labor market, which is really challenging right now for a lot of creators. A lot of agencies are trying to find that talent. That doesn't become your problem. And what it allows you to do is really build a strategy, be nimble, do things in a more sustainable fashion. You're not going to have a blog post drop and then 4 months later you're going to go, oh, we haven't done it in a while, we've been busy. The agency's there to keep it moving, make sure it's happening, and take ownership over things so that you really operate like you have a fully functioning marketing department and then some, right? It should make you better, not just more productive. It should make things move. So that's really what it comes down to. You should get up and running, and where you need to go faster. You should have turnkey infrastructure so that the labor market isn't a challenge for you. And ultimately, if the agency is worth their salt, they should be learning while servicing all of their clients. And then you get the benefit of that intelligence of knowing when we work with a dozen companies in the B2B services space or whatever the metrics are, they take the intel experience, the wins, losses, failures, successes from all of that, and then bring it to you. So you get the aggregate of all the learning without having to deal with the pain of it yourself at that extreme. And so when you pull that together, it can be a really, really productive relationship.
Nice. Yeah. Anything else you want to add about sort of going from nothing to something and figuring out what the next steps are in a marketing journey?
I think and really the one thing I would add is nobody knows your customer better than you. Nobody does. Nobody knows them better than you. And when great copywriting, great content, great marketing is not about a sexy story and a great graphic. It's about intimately understanding what makes your customer decide to buy things. When you have a very good grasp on that and you can bring that to the agency, then they can build on top of that. You can find tremendous success. But ultimately, no matter how good your content is or how sustainable your output is or what platforms you're on, marketing really only matters if it resonates with people. And before you go to that agency, before you take nothing and try to make it into something, take a moment and pause and understand who is your customer. And when I say customer, I mean the end person you want to connect with. That could be a CFO that's at a company that in an industry you want to buy, do business with. the customer could be a software engineer because you're having a really tough time hiring mid-level, senior-level engineers, and recruiting and headhunting just isn't cutting it. And instead of hunting people, you want to use marketing to build a bonfire that these engineers want to come around and spend time where they may not work for you immediately, but they start to see your brand as synonymous with vibrance and positivity and growth and opportunity, where maybe they have that moment with their boss or their job. And they're like, I feel like I'm topped out, or I didn't get that promotion, or, I'm ready for a change. And they're ready to go to you, not because you have a sexy job description or you're paying for job posts. It's because they've been around you the whole time. But it really, really intimately comes down to, if you can take a moment and really understand your customer and bring that to the agency, you're going to save so much time. You're going to save so much money because it condenses the testing process. That's really all it comes down to. Nobody's going to make one thing perfect. Like, you got to make a lot of things. You got to make a bunch of stuff, right? You have to be able to test things. And the more you know, sky's the limit at that point. So that's kind of how I'd close it out. And with that in mind, look, we're going to spend a lot of time trying to go through small little pieces on these episodes, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time. And we want to make it something digestible and easy to understand, where it makes you 1% more confident to make the decision. It makes you 1% more aware of what's happening in the market. Marketing is a little complicated right now in the sense that there's just so many options. There's just so many tools, there's so many softwares, there's so many ways to go about telling your story. And the hope with the marketing water cooler is really simple. Like, stop by for 10, 15 minutes at a time. And I hope you leave with one thing. We hope you leave with one little tidbit that makes you think, okay, I have more control over this process than I did before. So you can move forward with some confidence, right? And you can sort out things, or maybe it gives you another perspective you just hadn't thought about. And so, Steph, anything you want to add before we wrap things up?
Not really. I think, the things that really resonate with me are the knowing what your company needs and knowing your consumers. I think those two things are really important. And just getting back to figuring out the humanity of everything and like how you can connect with people. I think generally marketing is about figuring out how to connect with people with a certain goal in mind. And how do you do that authentically? Totally.
Got to know who you're trying to connect with. And if you don't know, or you're having trouble, that's where you start. That's right. And that's one of those things. You go to the agency and look, we want to grow and do this, and this. We have a really hard time understanding our customers. Then that's where you start, right? But we'll expand from there. And so thank you all for stopping by. We'll be back for more. Hey, thanks so much for sticking around to the end. If you liked the video, smash the like button and hit subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the new episodes. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. We will fold them into future episodes and make sure that you get the help and the answers you're really looking for all things marketing and communications.